everyone. It's so good to have you back in the Wellbeing Cafe. It's that space where we're allowed to think well, to live well, ultimately to be well. And today, I'm so thrilled that we are going to continue this very, very important subject matter on boosting your self-esteem. And we have an eloquent, illustrious, magnanimous speaker with us today who is going to share some of his wisdom. And he's been in the CAF before, and you know, I've heard, I'm going to let him know, I'm trying to embarrass him a bit, but I've heard he's in the top 5 speakers in certain people's minds. So you've got a lot to live up to today, Iroro. Welcome back. It's so good that you're back in the cafe with us. And so in a season of lockdown and tears and vaccines and coronavirus and job losses and family breakups, not able to see loved ones, we're not sure what tomorrow holds. So for many of us, our self-esteem has been challenged. The way we see ourselves, the way we view our worth. And you know, I know there's that massive debate about the difference around self-esteem and self-worth, but fundamentally whether there is a difference, I know one says one's a bit more esoteric, but whether there is a difference or not, it's rooted in your self-belief, and that is the thing that is challenged the most. How do you see yourself? For some of you, you have a faith, and in many ways that helps. But could you imagine this? The days when you don't think you're living up to the standard, it can have, which is your self-worth, it can have an effect on your self-esteem. So it's all interlaced, it's all interconnected, and fundamentally it's triggered, enhanced, or reduced based on your belief system. It's what you believe about yourself or about the way the world works and where you fit in within that space. So, with all the dilemmas and the pandemic and the tragedies, grief, loss, and so on, it's quite easy for our self-esteem to struggle, to be damaged. And so what we're going to do today is try and look at some ways in which we can boost our self-esteem. You know, I have to put the disclaimer out there. This is not a counseling session. It's just a space where we can talk. And for many of you, that's enough. However, if you feel that there is more work required, after you do your own assessment and you feel that there is some more work required, then I encourage you, we encourage you to seek further support from a healthcare practitioner, okay? But whatever it is, today we're starting the conversation, which for many people is enough to recalibrate, to think about what we're thinking about, and to even say to ourselves, how dare you think so lowly of yourself? Sometimes I speak to myself like that and, you know, say, come on, Mike, pull it together. And I'm reminded of my self-worth, and I try and I endeavor to live up to it. Many times I don't. I get it wrong. But this unconditional positive regard, because I'm a human, is that overriding status. So whether I think much of myself or not, it doesn't mean I'm a bad person or a good person. It just means my thinking just needs refocusing, retuning, so that we can accept who we are, our gifts. We can be a bit more grateful. We can be a bit more neighborly. We can be a bit more kind to ourselves and then to others. So self-beliefs, limiting self-beliefs are dangerous, and it does affect our self-esteem. So today, I think it's time that I introduce our guest, a brilliant young man. He's going to explain a bit about what he does, and you know, we're going to ask him a few questions, and then a bit later on, I'll take some questions from the floor, and we'll throw them at him, and I'm sure he will be able to give you some sort of answer. No pressure there, Iroro. So, ladies and gentlemen, can we please just give him some love, some thumbs up, some thunderclaps, and all the other stuff we do, the heart ones, and just welcome, let's welcome Iroro, because he's a special guest of ours. Thank you. Iroro, good evening to you. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Wow, you know, that was, my head is sweat. You know, my self-esteem is this high already. Like, just from that introduction, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm good. I'm sorted for the whole year. Thank you. So kind.
Excellent. So, Iroro, I'm gonna throw out a few questions to you.
Okay.
And I suppose the first thing, I've given a bit of a backdrop as to what I believe self-esteem is. But in your own words, what do you conceptualize self-esteem to mean?
I think for me, it's really what value I'm placing on myself, or for all of us here, what value, when I'm thinking of self-esteem, is okay for that individual. What value do you place on yourself? What's your estimation of self? And I know sometimes that sounds a bit arrogant to think, oh, well, who am I to think of myself, you know, of this way or that way? But I'm a firm believer that, you know, there is intentionality to who we are. We didn't just fall out the sky, or we didn't just evolve with no thoughts or no, you know, there was thinking, and we were conceived, you know, in the mind of a God, you know, regardless of what faith we have, you know. So there's some intentionality to all of us. So for me, whenever I think of, or when I struggle, especially more recently, earlier on it was a struggle for me, but now, whenever I go through those dips, I kind of have to go back to, actually, hold on, what's my estimation of self? And that has to be based on a standard. So it's kind of tracking back to that standard to say, actually, hold on, there's some intentionality to who you are. So that's my understanding of self-esteem, and how I try to see it or explain it, especially to my kids, to say, look, that's where you're pitching yourself. You're not pitching yourself against that person or that person. You're pitching yourself against this person.
So what happens when you fall below that bar?
Oh,
it's quite easy to do, because you're measuring yourself against the gods.
Well, yeah, it's really easy to again, it's easy to fall below that mark, because we're not perfect. We know that we've got flaws, but regardless of that, I still feel, because there's intentionality to who I am, I can always go back to it. It's kind of like I mean, I know this is going to be very generalistic, but a lot of guys would buy things, stuff from IKEA, and we wouldn't look at the instruction manual, right? We just think, oh, hold on a second, I'm Bob the Builder. I could put this up easily, right? And then we find out that we've put the wrong pole in the wrong place, and we have to unscrew everything, and it takes time. Ladies, on the other hand, again, I appreciate this is a huge generalization, but women, at least in my household, my wife would read the instructions. For me and the boys, we don't. And we end up faffing about, you know. So, but when there is an issue and we get stuck somewhere, we then go, oh, actually, there was a manual, wasn't there? And we go back to that manual to get the right instructions. So for me, that's kind of how I'm not placing myself as a god, because I'm not, but I go back to say, hey, because he's intentional, what's your thoughts on me? Where do I sit in regards to all that is around me? So that's my worldview. So I tend to look at things from that way. But I mean, I'm sure we will get into this at some point. I've gone through moments where self-esteem has dipped really, really low.
Yes.
And yeah, and yeah, we could talk about that definitely.
We will. Brilliant, Iroro. So that's just the intro. I'm going to come back to you shortly to find out a bit more about who you are, what you do, etc., etc. But I just want to welcome everybody again. It's so good to see so many wonderful faces. You know, I take it seriously when I see you. I've heard so much bad news in the last 9 months. I take it with respect and positive regard when I see your faces. So whether you've got your picture up or you're live on cam, I'm welcoming you and greeting you. I could call names. I should call names, but some of you have been around for a while. And if I miss one person's name, you might think, why didn't he call me? So I won't call no names. I'm just saying welcome to everyone. I see you. And even our special guests from across the waters, all the way from South Africa, I do have to give him special props, Loreko, because I know it's now 11:15 there. So he stayed up to listen in. I hope you find it useful, sir. Thank you for joining us. So Iroro, please do tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do for a living, and why did you choose that? And does it correlate? Does it line up with your self-esteem?
Cool. It's just unmuting myself. 9 to 5, I work in a hospital in pathology in Royal London. Why did I do that? So some of you might know this if you've been in the sessions before. So I'm one of 8. I'm the last child of 8 in our family. So growing up in the household, my parents seem to have designated job titles or certain jobs and professions for each child. So I was the one who was meant to be a doctor. In case any of you meet my mom, please tell her I'm a doctor. She still thinks I'm a doctor because I work in the hospital. I said, Mom, yeah, I work in the hospital. She's like, yeah, that's my doctor. That's my doctor. So please don't put me in trouble. But anyway, it was, you're going to be the doctor of the family. You're going to be the doctor of the family. So I heard that really from a very young age. Now, it did two things to me. One, it made me feel confident that my mom believed, that my parents believed in me, that I was smart enough to do it. But on the other side, it was a bit crippling because I was like, oh, I kind of have to live up to this expectation. This is all I've heard. You're the doctor of the family, you're the doctor of the family. Anyway, so I was in Nigeria at the time, come to England, then go through uni. I failed in my A levels. I literally got in by the scrape of, you know what? They scraped me in. I remember I called Clarence. I called the school. I said, "Look, I need to get in." And the lecturer at the time, he was a lecturer for the course who was talking to me, and he says, "Oh well, why didn't what did you your scores? I gave him my UCAS scores and everything." And I said to him, "Look, I did my AS and my A2 in 1 year. Please, I really need to get in." And I did biology, I did chemistry and maths. And he was like, "Are you crazy? You did your AS and A2 in 1 year and these 3 subjects? For that boldness, I'll give you an extra 10 marks. And that was how I got into uni. He gifted me 10 marks that scraped me in. And the course I could get into was biomedical science. So I'm like, all right then, at least I'm in uni. I'm not going to tell my mom I failed. So I went into biomedical science, and that's how I progressed on with my degree, and then started working in the labs, and then progressed on to what I'm doing now, quality management. And yeah, so that's knowing what I know now, though, I wouldn't have gone into biomedical science or medicine at all. I would have done.
Why?
Because I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy what I do, but I feel like other things I'm more passionate about than being in the lab or doing quality. And I mean, again, I enjoy it. It's an important job. I'm grateful for the opportunity and the privilege to work. But it's just, I probably would have gone into teaching maybe, or public relations. Those are probably areas I would have gone into rather than science.
Fantastic. So, Iroro, you've mentioned a few things there. You've talked about your personal faith and the measure, and how that keeps you on track. And there must be some self-fulfilling belief that you associate yourself to and you mirror yourself against. And we're going to look into that a bit more to try and see if anyone else in the room does similar, and whether they can attribute their values and their self-worth against something that's attainable and achievable and very useful. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at the whole concept here about where these self-belief systems lie. And I know we've got doctors on this platform tonight. I'm not a medical doctor, but we talked in these sessions previously about the amygdala, the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex. And we know that those are the areas where memories and behaviors are formed, especially the fight and flight, and the intelligence to ascertain if the flight and fight is necessary or should I have a more superior perspective. But nevertheless, if you ask me, there's three types of self-esteem. There's low self-esteem, there's a healthy self-esteem, and then there's an inflated self-esteem. And so, Iroro, when you must have failed at stuff. Yeah. You've talked about your exams, and that's public domain. You're kind enough to share that. But there may be some private stuff, personal stuff you've completely failed at.
Yeah.
And it's logged and lodged in your memory. And if I know anything about the mind, sometimes the mind has an ability to just remind us of our failings and our handicaps. And then I'm going to ask you now, Iroro, how do you reconcile your failures of the past with who you are today and the possibility of who you can be tomorrow? How do you limit that juxtaposition? How do you reduce the opposition of energy, one which is amplifying your failure and one which is calling you to your future?
That's a great question. So I've got two quick stories I'll give you. One, when I was secondary school, I wouldn't. So where we lived, there was 50 flights of stairs. So imagine using that how many times, 4 or 5 times a day, or even more. You're going to build calf muscles. It's just what it is, because you're just doing that regularly. So my calf was quite firm as a young boy. So, but in school now, we had to wear shorts, and people would criticize and ridicule me because my legs were firm, because it was seen as a sign of poverty. Like you had to walk miles and trek distances, hence you've got strong calf muscles. That was the thinking. Now, I wasn't from a poor family. However, what was said really impacted me that I didn't want to wear shorts. So much so that carried on even to my adult life. But then what I did back then was just, this aggressive, like, I'm going to get at you before you come at me type mentality, thinking that was dealing with the issue. And I got by, but then it was only when we now had our son, and I realized my older son, he wouldn't want to wear shorts to primary school. So I started to say, well, hold on, because I recognized what was going on. It was getting on my wife's nerves, but then I recognized, hold on, actually, this is me in secondary school. So I then started to speak to him and encourage him and told him my journey and what happened to me. And it was only then I was really kind of freed of that. What I thought this is years ago, because even till recently, I wouldn't wear shorts. It was only after that conversation I started to wear shorts. Again, how long is that? Fast forward to me being an adult now, there was a time where, so that's one way I tried to deal with it, but I didn't really deal with it. Now, as an adult, I remember a time I wasn't actually working. So my wife was the one working, and so she was bringing in the money. And what that did to my self-esteem, like being a man, I thought, well, I've always seen my dad was the provider of the family. That's kind of how I've grown up. Like the man provides, and which is not a bad thing, but my mindset then was one of pride and arrogance. Like, how come my wife is the one bringing in the money? And what does that mean? Does that mean she could then disrespect me? And then all those sorts of nonsense. There was no reasoning to that insecure state I was in. But then I remember this moment. I remember exactly where I was in the room. I was doing some cleaning, and it was just like I had an out of body experience. Like, Iroro, like, what's wrong with you? Tokwe is not like that. That's my wife's name. She's not that kind of person. So why are you acting irrational? Why are you thinking? Why is this? Why is your self-esteem taking a beating because your wife is providing in this moment? It's not like you're lazy or you're not trying to work. You are looking for a job. And that was like, oh, okay, actually, that's true. She's not that kind of person. Why am I being unreasonable? Why am I letting this affect how my estimation of self? And that really transformed even how I related to her, and in terms of even money and how we spoke and dealt with money. So two different experiences or two different responses to a moment of insecurity or low self-esteem. One was to cover it up, thinking it would go away, but it never did. And that stayed with me for years. The other was actually dealing with the issue head on. And thankfully, because people fight over money, relationships break down over money. If I had remained in that state, who knows what could have happened? Being a prideful person and thinking, oh, your wife's making all the money and then I can't think rationally, what sort of arguments could that have led to? So that realization in terms of, okay, well, I'm feeling a way. I really don't want to. I still want to be able to provide. I still want to be able to, protect and do all of that. But then actually, relax. It shouldn't affect who you are. Now, that didn't stop me from still trying as hard as I can, looking for jobs, applying for everything. But the motive was different. What my take on it was, I'm not trying to now get this job so I can be the breadwinner, so I can be the provider, or so I can say, well, I earn more money. But I'm trying to get this job because I don't want my wife to work as hard as she is. I'm trying to serve my wife and serve my family. Different mindset, still the same action, but just a different perspective. So for me, that's kind of how I need to somehow be able to think myself clear.
Yes.
Because when I'm in that state of insecurity and then flux, it's not good. It's not a good state. I can't make good decisions in those sort of states.
We're going to dig in a bit more because I get it. I totally hear what you're saying, but I'm also here in the room where people are saying, yeah, I've got similar situations, but I'm not making good decisions. I hear that argument. Why are you feeling this way about your partner? And you still crumble. You still don't find the sagacity and the strength to make the right choices. So we're going to dig in a bit more, and hopefully we can get some solutions for everyone in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Want to also shout out to El Cato. I thought she'd done a fantastic session this week. Lots of favorable responses. Really, really appreciate you for your openness and your vulnerability. Brilliant session. El, I might have to ask you to join me in asking Iroro some questions. Let's get him.
Oh, she's gonna make me cry. No.
But Iroro, I thought about it. Maybe you should have been a footballer with all those calf muscles.
I should have. Do you know how much? Truth be told,
People want them. They go training for that stuff.
I know, but back in the day in Nigeria, football wasn't cool. It wasn't for the rich kids. Now I said to my mom, look, if I'd been a footballer, look, I'll be in a mansion now. But anyway.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, I'm going to ask a few questions in the room. I've got a very special guest who has spoken in the cafe before. I'm going to throw her in the deep end. I'm going off script now because I'm just trying to read the room and sense the feeling. And I've always seen her as a positive person. Her energy comes across as someone who's got her self-esteem intact, irrespective of what's going on. So I hope she doesn't mind. But guess what? We're a family. We're together in this room, and we can have a conversation just to share perhaps how you do it. Because I admire your self-esteem, and that's Shola. She does Food for Purpose. Great pastor, great woman. Shola, I'm hoping you can speak to us. I know you're muted. I'm throwing you in the deep end. Good evening to you. Boosting or maintaining your self-esteem in such difficult circumstances.
Oh, wow. Gosh, that is... Okay, let me just keep it really real. I think moving, my journey has been working, in what one would call a very secure environment, the NHS, regular salary, middle management, lovely and cushy, to leaving the NHS 4 years ago to become an entrepreneur because I heard the Lord. And my self-esteem absolutely dropped to my boots the day that I said goodbye to my somewhat illustrious role in the NHS. And even though being a pastor, married to a pastor around believers and, this hallelujah saturated environment, I struggled just feeling, I just felt that my weight and my worth had decreased because, and this is really stupid, but don't laugh. I became, I moved from having a fantastic office and having a PA and managing over 120 staff in the NHS to being an entrepreneur. When I first started, it was a step of faith. I wasn't really earning anything, but it wasn't really about earning, it was about establishing. But I would wake up some mornings feeling great because I was doing what God had sent me to do, but I felt empty because I'm one of those people who I've always worked, and my husband, even though he's a typical Nigerian male, he's always been the stay-at-home dad. Being a pastor, it was easy for him. I've always worked, and I just felt empty, and I struggled. And I'm that type of person as a pastor who'll give that. What I realise now is perhaps almost hypocritical advice and say, your worth is in Jesus. Jesus loves you. It's not your job. It's not all that. But you know what? My worth was ingrained in my job. And I make a careful, distinction because I think my job wasn't just about the money. It was about who I was and how I'd grown as a person. But all of that made up who I was. It's part of the gifts that I was able to glean from my colleague, believers and unbelievers, gleaned so much, but also working hard, that God ethos. So I struggled, and shall I be very honest, I am, as Food for Purpose grows, I am daily seeing myself in the mirror of God. But you know what, sir, when we don't get the funding, when that contact doesn't go through, I will be honest, I do find myself sliding down. And I have to look in the mirror, like you were saying, and I say, come on, Shoals, put your shoulders back, remember why you're here. And sometimes I have to tell Shola a few times because it was a long time and I put so much into that. So I don't know if that answers your question. I'm just keeping it real. Every day it's a journey. I get better and better. Good. But yeah, it's a journey.
So it's a self-assessment daily. It's a self-reflection daily.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Last year's self-esteem is not good enough for today.
No, sir. No,
you need to refresh it. You need to keep boosting it.
So there's something about believing, isn't it? Sorry, sir. You mentioned believing. Yes. I felt that some of my Christianity had been somewhat hollow. So I think it's easy, and I always say this to people, it's easy to worship God, to give and everything when your needs feel that they're met and you're in your ideal job and you're just, but as soon as those comforts are moved, it's hard to read the Bible and to believe every single word all of the time. And I hope people don't feel, this is a negative statement about our faith. I think it's a reality of humanity. To believe, and when I say believe, I mean absorb that word, and that word is for me. So what I'm saying, sir, is that positive confessions, verbal, were just not good enough. I had to believe that it was for Shola. It was for Shola Oladipo. You know, it was for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the power. Because I tell you what, if we, last, when was it? When Elle was on, we were talking about sticks and stones and breaking bones, but words and names will never hurt us. But it's the words you believe that can have a profound effect on your life. And I'm wanting, by the end of today's session, for us to try and sift through all what's going on to find a narrative that we actually do believe, that narrative that is attributed to our self-worth, irrespective of our situations. And that's where the power is. When things are not going right, who are you? How do I realign to a bigger meta narrative that describes who I am, that calls me to be? It's a tough one. It requires a lot of perspicacity and sagacity and strength. But I tell you what, it can be done. Right? So thank you, Shola. And thanks for being so open. You see, this is why I love speaking to people like Shola, because it's not powder coated and sugar coated. It's real. It's authentic. And that's what we need today to keep going forward. Thank you for your contribution. It's so good to see Darren. Didn't recognize him as D-Dubs, but Darren, good friend of mine for years and years and years. He runs a brilliant program for black men. It was called Brother Man. He started this probably in 2000. Really, really good project. Look out for what's going on. We're going to be working together. I'm so glad he's joined us tonight. Thank you, Darren. Sorry, that was a little commercial break there. But back to Iroro. Iroro, I know you're a father of two wonderful boys. How do you boost their self-esteem? I know facts tell us in this country, the great motherland, the mother country, as it's often called, even though it's not the mother country. What's that about? But the Great Britain, black boys rank the lowest at all key stages in school. At all, I said it again, all key stages in education. You've got two young black boys. Black young boys, this is not a black young boys show, this is self-esteem. But young black boys are not flavour of the month with police. They're not flavour of the month with professors. They're not flavour of the month with the principal. It's just tough being a young black boy. How do you raise their self-esteem?
Yeah, another good question. I see you've got your 3 Ps there, the police, principal.
Yeah, I got 5. I normally use 5, but I just used 3 today.
But yeah, I think for us is really being intentional with how we speak to them. I think what we say, how I speak to my boys is really important. And in the early days, my wife and I would have arguments in terms of just how we discipline, because sometimes, especially when you want to discipline, they've done something that is really, wrong, and you're upset, and we want to just, dish out the punishment. But initially, it was me really just going all out. So now I'm learning to slow down, because in that moment, again, as I said earlier on, when I am not thinking straight, it's impact, is reaction, is, it's not with love. So that means sometimes things can come out the wrong way, or things that shouldn't have come out at all would come out. So it's now being intentional, slowing down, and really affirming them, saying to them the things that whatever they do that I see that is really good. So my boys, they draw, they like just being creative, and I talk that up, like, hey guys, this is really good, this is really, really good. One of them wrote a story and they got published at the school. I'm like, wow, this is really good. The other one did something. I'm like, so every little achievement we talk it up, whether it goes to school or it's just indoors, it doesn't matter. As they've done something, we really speak it up and say, look, this is really good, awesome. I think we need to keep, for me anyway, in my household, it's about reaffirming the things that they do. And when they do things that are wrong, being mindful. I mean, my oldest son, he got into trouble last week because he made a direct statement to his younger brother saying, "You are this." And I flipped, because that is a no-no in our household. You don't say you are. Especially when it's negative. You can say, well, what you did was wrong, but you don't say you are. So I went like, green and everything. But it's that kind of intentionality. So I try my best to guard it, because as you rightly said, our kids go out, they're meeting with other kids that we don't know what sort of values they have. So we don't know what's being said to them. We don't know what's being said by their teachers, or just, or what's been even reinforced in society, because they've seen ads, and that all of this messaging is saying something to them. So for me and my wife, we're really intentional to say, boys, we love you. That's something we say every day. We love you. You are amazing. You're valuable. If they've got exams of stuff they're doing, we always, we say, look, it's regardless of the outcome of this, you're still amazing. So this doesn't define you. It's just trying our best to try to just not shield them from pressure, because in life we have to deal with pressure. We need pressure to grow. So there's the right kind of pressure, but just trying to equip them to really think for themselves, to be able to really see themselves the right way. Not overinflated, because again, you don't want to be overinflated and say you are this that you're not. But at the same time, you don't want to drag yourself to the bottom. You just need that sweet spot, in a sense. So that's what I do, just reaffirming, and then asking them questions as well. Like, boys, what are we doing that reaffirms you? What do we need to do more of? Make them partners in this journey.
That's great advice. And I know last year, I think it was November, October, that sort of time, we talked a lot about culture. And it seems like you've adopted a culture that works for you and your household, which may not have been part of your heritage. And that is courageous, is powerful. I respect that. And the best you can do to give your kids the best start is what I will encourage you to keep doing. I've got one more question for Iroro, but I'm going to ask you, if you have a question that you would like to pose to Iroro, can you just jot it in the chat box, and according to time, we will quickly scour through and try and give the question, and hopefully Iroro can give us a quick answer. I know he can. He thinks on his feet. So Iroro, whilst they're writing these questions for you, just one more question that I have, and it's about your personal well-being, or everyone's personal sense of well-being. And what do you see as the current problems or issues that are affecting people's self-esteem? What's the big thing? Look, we know coronavirus, but before coronavirus, there were self-esteem issues. So what happens? What causes us to fluctuate or go into such a lull? Is there a trend? Is there a behavior? Is there a thing that happens? In your opinion?
I think there are multiple things, but I think one of the things that has really been on my mind more recently, again, even before Corona, and I'd say possibly even in the coronavirus season as well. I was going to give a talk one time, and it was to adults, and the topic was, aren't we all teenagers? And the whole premise was really to think of how we stereotype young people and say they're really about themselves, and they want to grow quick, and they want to be liked, they want that instant success, and they want to be popular on social media, all of that stuff. And I was really going to flip it and say, well, for us as adults, don't we crave these things as well? We might not crave social media platform, but are we not comparing ourselves to the neighbor? Are we not comparing ourselves to the person, to the office next door, or, what are you earning and what am I earning, what are you driving and what am I driving, what are you wearing? And aren't we doing that in some sort of capacity? So for me, I think, I could be wrong, but this is just my opinion. that as much as a lot of adults try to hide that we're actually caught in this comparison trap, I think that we actually are. And we criticize and say, well, these young people, they really, and yes, maybe so. But I think that a lot of us are there as well. We're constantly battling. And again, there's nothing wrong in wanting to, progress and do well and achieve. I really believe that we should do the best we can. But it's the motives. Again, if we're doing it because because we believe that there is more for us to give, there is more for us to do and accomplish, there's more people for us to reach out to, great. But if we're doing it just because we want to, show off. I had someone say, and this is going to sound crazy, but I had someone say, oh, I don't go to that place anymore because they don't appreciate the clothes I wear. And this is an adult. I'm talking about someone who is got kids. And I'm thinking, what? What do you mean? You don't go there because they don't appreciate the clothes that you wear. Or I turn up late so everyone can see me walk. I'm like, my God, we're in primary school, But for me, that's what I think. There are other things, but for me, I think that a lot of adults, and I fall into that trap as well, we don't like to admit it, but we secretly look at what people are doing. And yes, we can be inspired, but on the one hand, we're sometimes a bit jealous. And that puts our self-esteem, like, they're not even as good as me. They can't even speak well. They don't even do that. I could do that better than them, but they've got that platform internally.
Exactly. So keeping up with the Joneses.
Pretty much.
Right. And then there's another saying, living the life of Riley. And I always say, yes, but you're not Riley. You're not Riley. Stop it. Try and be you. Be the best version of you. Yeah. And I don't know. Again, I've got 15 minutes. Can you believe that, ladies and gentlemen? 15 minutes.
Wow.
Where's the time gone? All right. Listen, Dr. Yasidi, Happy New Year to you, my dear. Doc, are you able to share a thought with us just for a few seconds? I'm throwing you in the deep end because I know you're a strong swimmer. Hey, Doc. Just a quick question. Great to see you again. It's back to this self-esteem. You're a general practitioner. And would you say, it's a hard question, but I'm trying to answer it the best way. Antidepressants and stress, do you think a lot of that has to do with self-esteem? Do you think that's where it possibly starts?
That's a very, very good question, Mike. Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year, although it's February. I would be lying if I said that there wasn't a link as to whether it's a cause and effect or a byproduct of each other. I don't know of any evidence that says that. Yes. But one thing I do know is that when people are suffering with depression or stress, it has an impact on their self-esteem. Yes. If people suffer with low self-esteem, they can very, very easily develop symptoms of depression and start to struggle with coping with what we will sometimes call normal stresses, because they constantly doubt themselves. They're constantly checking. And before you know it, anxiety steps in. So I think it's kind of like a chicken and an egg situation. And oftentimes, I guess, thinking about everything we've discussed this evening so far and earlier on Tuesday, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of things that we label as depression or anxiety, actually, when you peel off the layers, is actually just low self-esteem. And when you address that, all of a sudden, everything else falls into place. I know that for a lot of people, when they are suffering with anxiety and depression, one of the things I often recommend is counseling, because people often want to go straight for the medication because they think it's a quick fix. But I'm of the opinion that, and I think I've said this before, that medication is like a plaster. If you've got a wound and if you don't tend the wound and you just put a plaster over it, you think you're doing okay, but you're not. And the reason why I always recommend counseling or some sort of talking therapy is because that helps to peel off those layers and see what exactly is this based on. Is it based on trauma? Is it about an experience or a self-view that isn't right? It is about thinking that needs to be addressed, different things. And I often recommend that. But the problem with that is it takes a lot of work. It's a lot of, almost like you're treading through mud to get through, but eventually with the right sort of support and input, people do come out on the other side. And one of the reasons why I often stress that is because in life, and it's kind of like what Roro said, there are different things that happen to us. And even Pastor Shola said, different things that happen to us at different phases that can come at our self-esteem. Self-esteem is something that we're constantly working on. It's not something that you get once and it's like, wow, I've got it. No, it is a ongoing day to day. You wake up one day, yippee, wake up another day, I can't be bothered to get out of bed. And with counseling or having support in general, it's about knowing how to identify those signs. For some people, it's okay, I've had a few days that I'm feeling a bit low. I know that if I exercise, that's a good pick me up and that helps to build my self-esteem. Like Elle said yesterday, if I'm singing or dancing, and it's about knowing ourselves, being true to ourselves and going, okay, when I'm feeling bad, this helps. I am feeling bad, owning that, not just saying I'm feeling bad, but being aware of that emotion and then going, okay, I'm here. What do I do? Being mindful. But yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, let me do this and give you a big heart. Thank you, Doctor. It's such a brilliant summary of where we're at thus far in this conversation. And I do like what you said, don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed if you do need to see someone, a mind doctor. If we are jogging and we twist our ankle, we don't mind going to the doctor and saying, listen, my ankle's swollen, or see a physiotherapist. We seek the help. But when our minds are hurting, we don't tend to seek help early, and perhaps we could do some damage limitation if we did. So thank you, Dr. Yasidi. Doctor, I'm going to do a quick announcement now. Next week, Thursday, I've got a legal lawyer, medical lawyer, who's going to come on the platform, and he's going to talk to us about one of the things that's stressing many of us, which is, should we take the vaccine? You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. Next week, Thursday, 8:30. It's going to be epic. He agreed this afternoon, and I was like, yeah. Because look, I know many of us are struggling with whether we should or not.
Yeah.
And, it will be really good to have that conversation. We're not going to say you should or you shouldn't. We're going to give you options, and then you can make an intelligent decision. And then there's one other thing I would like to do. I've got 2 questions that I definitely want to throw back to Iroro. But I also want to tell you about something that I've achieved. And towards the beginning of last lockdown, or in March when lockdown started, I gave you all a emotional hygiene kit, right? And many of you said it's helped. I've now created a course on that emotional hygiene kit, going through methodically how you can think well, live well, and be well, how your emotions can receive that, metaphorically speaking, sanitizer. Like we do for our hands, we wash them and we want to be sure that we're protecting ourselves. We want to protect our minds. So this emotional hygiene training course is available. Now, it's funny, we've got 36 people in the room. There was a bit more earlier. I know some of you are tired and you want to go to bed. Don't worry, we won't be on there forever. But I've got 50 tokens or vouchers that I want to give to people to actually be of service to you. So I'm going to post the code. Ricky, if you could post the code, I'm going to ask you explicitly not to pass the code on, because as soon as it reaches 50, it's not going to work. And that might mean if you don't register in time and you've passed the code on, you might not get on. You don't want that. Okay, so it's free. I'm giving it to you for free. All right, anything after that, after the first 50, it's going to be £15. All right, and I've given a bit more nuggets and thoughts, and we've gone in a bit deeper. So please, 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 that's the code. Ricky's just published it. Take it down. Be one of the first 50 people. If you miss out, can't say I didn't give you a chance. I just want you to think well, live well, and be well, and I hope it's of value to you. And it's been my service, and I've enjoyed doing it. It's been difficult, but it doesn't mean you can't enjoy difficult things. All right. So I hope you do enjoy it. All right, Iroro. A few questions, and one of them is a powerful one, a really powerful one, and it's come from El Cato, and she's basically, in summary, saying, did your parents build up your self-esteem, or did you have to find it from within? Because sometimes, as much as you could be from a really good home, great upbringing, great value systems, morals, religion, culture, and everything else, there comes a time when we hit rock bottom. So did your self-esteem really get boosted and anchored from when you were a child, or did you have to discover this at some miraculous moment in your life?
Great question. Thanks, El, for asking that. So it's a bit of both, to be honest. So on the one hand, the things my parents would say, like as I mentioned earlier, oh, you're the doctor of the family. That gave me confidence to say, hey, they think I'm smart enough to do it. So that was good. And then on the flip side, there wasn't the sort of intentionality that I see now with my children compared to how they spoke to us. And again, it's a different era. So they did the best they knew how. But so in some ways they did, but in other ways, I kind of had to discover and develop as I went along and say, okay, well, what more do I need to? And I think it would be similar for most people, where regardless of what our family backgrounds and how amazing our parents may be, there'll be things that, so I know young people who are from amazing homes, but then they still struggle with things that, you know, the parents don't even know about sometimes, just because of the pressures and what else they have to deal with. So a bit of both for me. Some from my parents and some self-discovery. And I think it's a healthy space. I think we need to keep doing and keep learning and keep growing and keep discovering. We can't fully rely on our parents. I think they give us the platform, but then we now need to build on those layers. And that's certainly what I teach my kids, to say, look, I'm trying to teach you how to think, because at some there'll be a point where mom and dad will not be there to guide you. So we need to develop you to be able to think and make the right decisions, look at things objectively and make a informed decision. So, yeah.
Brilliant. And so we have to consider the law of conformity. Who are we hanging around? Where are we drawing our information from?
Yeah.
People detox. That's a good one to do. Part of that's in the course. I'm jumping ahead. There's a people detox that you can do, which is absolutely cathartic.
Can I just say that is absolutely one of the things I was reflecting from last year coming into this year was, what sort of relationships do I have? Do I have real quality relationships? Are these people who are building me up, or are these people who are just draining and not speaking life into me? And I really made the decision that 2021 and beyond, I'm going to invest more in the quality relationships. If you think of, and quality relationship doesn't mean you have to know 100 people, because I don't think we have the emotional capacity to deal with 100 people intimately anyway. But if you think of a puzzle, right? One of the pieces, maybe the piece at the top right-hand corner, try and visualize this with me. That piece is probably touching one piece on the side, one underneath, and just slightly one to the side. Not many. The one in the middle is probably touching 4 pieces. So really and truly, I think, in my opinion, 3, 4, 5, maybe you can handle 5, 6 close relationships, people who would do life with you and really speak into you and pull you up when you're going off, but then really encourage you and say, look, you know, you're better than this. You can do. I had a guy tell me one time, he took me on a drive on an A46, right? He said to me, Iroro, he put me in this car, I was still young, young in marriage. He said to me, Iroro, I don't know, the way you're kind of acting, you're acting a bit off sometimes, and you look like you're someone who would cheat on your wife. Now, you can hear that, I'm like, what? How dare someone say that to you? He said that to me, but you know, first of all, I couldn't get out of the car because we're on the A406, and this guy my man was driving at 70 miles per hour. So he chose the right place to tell me that. But then I thought to myself, this man was really loving me to tell me this. And whilst I was angry initially, I had to reassess and think, actually, hold on a second, what are the things he's seen in me that has made him say that? So that was a moment of reflection. I say, okay, Ro, you need to be mindful of that. So we need those sort of people who can really be real and help us grow. Constructive criticism. So yeah, good quality relationships. I agree with that 100%. Sorry, I jumped in, but yeah, that's something I believe we need.
Iroro, that's powerful stuff. Relationship sifting, and what comes through and is pure and authentic, you keep. What's not good for you, put aside. That's self-management. That's important. Yeah. I'm going to try and summarize the questions because there's been a thread of questions that have come through to you, and I think it encapsulates what Dr. Yasidi Shola said and what I've said earlier. Iroro, when you do look in the mirror and things are not going great, and it may be because of something you've done, or maybe because of something someone's done to you, and you're not on top of your world, you still put on your suit and you go to work and everyone loves you and internally you're crumbling. How do we get out of that dodge?
So, couple of things that work for me. One, it's back to relationships. We need, now, whether you're in a marital relationship or whatever, we need people. The one who goes alone is really in trouble. The one who has someone, when you fall, you've got someone next to you who can pick you up.
Yes.
So I can't really emphasize or overemphasize the need for relationships. You need someone. We're not meant to do life on our own. Regardless of how amazing you are, you will need someone at some time in your life. I just believe that. When no one's an island. And I felt there's so many times, but I think one of the most recent ones was even to do with the work I do with the young people, young adults at the church and the youth. And I was saying to my wife, again, just as recent as last week, I was saying to my wife, man, I think we've been working with the young people for 5-6 years. And I was saying to my wife, man, I feel like I've failed these guys. I don't feel like I've done what I could have done. I was really and she had to, I was really feeling low. I felt like I wasn't, first of all, even from taking the position, I felt like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't, there was a lot of stuff. And it was her saying, Iroro, actually, you know what, if you've been chosen to do it, you can do it. Believe in yourself. Like, just do it. What's the worst that can happen? Right? And one of my other friends, amazing guy, I love this guy. That's all he said. He says, Iroro, what's the worst that can happen? Just do it. What's the worst that can happen? So I hear that all the time. So I think that is important. So I have to encourage all of us to ensure that we have good quality, invest in relationships. And the second thing is that I'm learning to be kind to myself. I know you've spoken about this a few times, just paper dialoguing. Write something. It's hard, I know, to say you're good at something. We always look at the negative things, right, than the positives. But really assess where you are and what you've achieved and what you are good at, and write it down if you can't say it out. So I sometimes I'll write it down. Sometimes I just say it out and say, look, Iroro, you're good. You can do this. And it's not having an overinflated ego. It's just believing that actually, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And, notice I said, I didn't say write what you are the best at, because you don't have to be the best at it. Just write what you're good at. And for me, that really helps me. The relationships I have, people who can keep it 100% with me and say, Iroro, okay, you can. I believe in you. I was saying to Rick, I think it was this week, I was telling you, Rick. So some guy I met recently, I met him a while back, but we haven't really spoken like very, very closely. He calls me out of the blue and says, hey, Iroro, I'm doing this consultancy for this church, and they're in need of a new lead pastor. I've not really spoken to him, and we're not like close friends. And I think you're the one for the job. And this is what the salary is. This is, and giving me all the, and in that moment, I was like, yeah, I am the one for the job. My walk changed. But I say that to say, like, I wasn't thinking, I could do that sort of thing. My pastor said to me, Iroro, look, I'm gonna transition to you. Even at that, I didn't look, do you want this church to still stand? Because I'm not the right person for it, type thing. But someone who didn't really know me calling me up and saying, Iroro, I believe you can do this. That did something to me. So again, it's important that we get people around us who can really speak life to us, not tell us lies, but who can really say, look, there's more to you than what you know. And you also be kind to yourself, because we can't love others if we can't really love ourselves. We can't affirm others if we will not first affirm ourselves. That's what I believe.
There you go. And that relationship space is a place where we can take off our masks and reveal. And as I said on Tuesday, I'm getting to the place where I don't want to be one to judge. When someone takes off their mask and I see, am I going to be embarrassingly surprised or am I going to show compassion? Because I tell you what, if you guys took off Mike Kelly's mask, you might see stuff that you don't like. But guess what? If I took off yours, I'll see something too. Who are we to judge? All right? Let's be kind to each other. Let's be kind to ourselves. You've just reminded me, Iroro, as we're closing, to do what we done on Tuesday. And I don't mind if you want to review it, is to write down 5 positive things about yourself. For those of you who didn't join us on Tuesday, that's what our task was to do. Write down 5 positive things about yourself. And it sometimes can be challenging. It can be challenging. Yeah? Positive things. That doesn't mean the things you do. And even the things you're good at doesn't mean it's positive. Write down 5 positive things about yourself. Speak to yourself. Get on this course. There's some positivity mantras in there. There's a lot of stuff for free that you're going to get. Work through it. If you've done it before, do it again. Review, refresh. As we've heard, self-esteem is not a one-dose pill. It's a continuum. You've got to keep going. You've got to keep boosting yourself. And so I'm hoping that today, ladies and gentlemen, warts and all, we might have been feeling a bit low coming in. I'm hoping that just after this last hour, you might feel a bit better. Because you know what? Life is tough for most of us, but we're made of tough stuff. Yeah. So we're going to keep going. We're going to keep growing. And we're going to keep glowing. All right? So, ladies and gentlemen, can we give Iroro a big celebratory round of applause? Thank you, Iroro, for joining us today.
Thank you all.
You're a star.
No, thank you.
You're a star. He's one of our... He's one of us. He's one of our own. He's been with us for a while. Thank you, Iroro. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Parade it, brother. All right. So, and to everyone else, thank you for all your contributions. I'm hoping you can continue to think well, live well, be well. Tomorrow morning when you get up, look in the mirror and say, I am good. I am good enough.
Yes.
Warts and all. All right? You got to like yourself before anyone else can. Have a good night, peaceful night, rest well, and shout out tomorrow morning how great you are. All right? Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you.